Neuroplasticity is a real thing that does exist. I love talking about it. I have cut it out of so many videos I can't even tell you. Just like about neuroplasticity. It's like one of the few things that I will. I'm doing it right now. Anyway. Hi everybody, thanks for coming back. Today we're talking about some more mental health advice from the internet, primarily Instagram. I swear Instagram really is just like kind of a cesspool. Although I will say it has gotten better. I'm not sure if the algorithm is just like more finely attuned to the type of content that I want to see, but I did have actually kind of a hard time finding things that I disagreed with, so maybe that's a good sign. Regardless, we're talking about mental health advice from the internet / Instagram. Today is a bit of a mixed bag. I have some things that I like, some things that I dislike, so let's talk about it. Oh, I need graphics first. Okay, let's start on a positive note. This one, I don't have her @ but everybody who I mentioned that I like their content, I will make sure to leave their @ in the description. I don't want to leave the @ for content that I don't like. A, because like I'm not trying to promote people that I don't like, but B, because I don't want anybody to show up and like harass them or be rude. So I try to edit out their identifying information if I dislike their content. But this graphic, put it over here, I think is incredibly useful and I love this. I send this to my clients all the time and I refer to this a lot because one of the things that comes up a lot is this idea of sitting with discomfort and not avoiding our uncomfortable emotions. And this is like a great sort of starting tool for diving into the world of expressing our emotion instead of avoiding the emotion. And I love that this like little graphic sort of plays out what it would look like if you sit with the discomfort versus if you avoid the emotion. So I really like this. I think this is like just a useful resource for everybody. And their account has lots of similar style graphics that covers more mental health issues. So like highly recommend. Like I said, I just really like it a lot. Okay, graphic number 2. Don't like this one as much. You will be exactly as happy as you decide to be. Ugh, this stuff is so frustrating to me. This is like very toxic positivity vibes, but also like so dismissive of the very real impact of mental illness, of neurodiversity, of oppression and injustice. There are so many reasons that a person would not be happy or would struggle to find happiness that don't have anything to do with a personal decision to be miserable. I also really disagree with this idea that like choosing to be sad is a bad thing. We literally just talked about this in the vein of sitting with discomfort and learning how to express our emotions in a productive and helpful and cathartic way, as opposed to avoiding them and prolonging our suffering. And so I don't understand the stigmatization of like feeling how you feel. If you are upset, if you're sad, if you're having a bad day, if you're going through a rough period, it's totally okay for you to just fucking feel bad. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And this is like sort of become a trope in the therapy community, actually, like this idea of like it's okay to not be okay. So it's just mind-blowing to me that people are still sharing content in this vein of, you know, you're like the master of your own destiny kind of thing. And like, I get it to a degree. I can understand, you know, choosing to work through your stuff or choosing to go to therapy, you know, if that's even accessible for you, choosing to work through your trauma or mental illness and like treat yourself with kindness and compassion to optimize your ability to be happy. It's not as simple as turning a light switch on or off. It doesn't work that way. Human emotions and human expression is like very complex and an ever-evolving process. So like very much dislike. Nope, that's a TikTok. This one I actually really do like. This says, difficult truth, a lot of people are practicing emotional avoidance and calling it a positive mindset. This is like very prevalent right now, and I've noticed this a lot. And again, I don't know if it's Instagram just showing me content that I tend to consume or look at, but I've noticed this showing up a lot more. Toxic positivity is something that people have talked more about recently, and I'm really happy about, you know, the awareness that's being brought to this topic, because gratitude journals and like just choose to be happy and like all of this stuff, I understand where it's coming from. Like I get why a person would feel like this could be useful to them. However, it's first of all contraindicated in the research. Just white knuckling your way through discomfort and sadness for the sake of pretending to be okay and forcing a smile on your face because it could be worse, like that doesn't help you. And we know anecdotally, but also from the research, that this is not the most effective way to work through your emotions or, you know, to work through like trauma or like any difficult emotion really. And all of the toxic positivity stuff is also rooted in mental illness stigma. because there's this idea that experiencing sadness or anger or fear or discomfort really at all is a negative thing, that that's bad, and that you should only experience happiness and joy and excitement and curiosity and interest, and like that's not true. The only reason that that exists is because we as a society have stigmatized mental illness and stigmatized feeling sad or angry or fearful so much so that it's become polarizing, and we view these as like two opposite ends of the spectrum, and like that's not true. Human emotion doesn't have moral value. You're not a good or bad person based on the emotions that you feel. They just are. Your emotions are just a function of being a human being, and crying or being afraid or being angry, like those are all just part of the human experience that are unavoidable. In the same way that it makes sense for you to express when you're excited, it makes sense for you to express when you feel sad. And so avoiding if you can hear the dogs barking, that's my neighbors. Sorry. Hopefully the camera's not picking it up, but if it is, apologies. But yeah, this idea of like I'm practicing a positive mindset and like gratitude and whatever, and like that makes me a happier person, that's not really true. Again, we know that that's not true based on the research, but it also is just like steeped in the mental illness stigma, and like 0 out of 10 don't recommend. Okay, let's talk about the third one. This one, good gravy. This says, did you know you can rewire your brain to be happy by simply recalling 3 things you're grateful for every day for 21 days? This is filled with pseudoscience. I've seen this a lot. If you do something for 21 days, it becomes a habit. There's a whole pyramid scheme workout based on this idea. And personally, I haven't looked into it. I'll add some text here after I've done the actual research about it. But it is frustrating to me when people talk about rewiring the brain to like force yourself to be happy, because neuroplasticity is a real thing that does exist. I love talking about it. I have cut it out of so many videos I can't even tell you. Just like about neuroplasticity. It's like one of the few things that I'm doing it right now. Anyways, neuroplasticity is a real thing. Your brain is able to change and adapt and grow based on your circumstances and the stimuli that you're being presented with. But I feel like this is kind of like using that for evil and not for good, because neuroplasticity is intended to help you adapt your circumstances, and like it's a function of resilience. Like the human brain is fucking incredible, and it will adapt and change in order to help you continue to function and be your best self, or what your brain thinks your best self should be. Anyway, it's complicated. I'm making a whole video about it. Revisit later. But I really just like when people talk about neuroplasticity in this lens that you can force your brain to be happy. Like that's not the point. We literally just talked about this, but experiencing emotions, even, emotions like sadness or anger or grief or, frustration, those are just a function of being a human being. And yes, they're uncomfortable. Like nobody enjoys feeling sad, but it's necessary. It's a part of being a human being. We cannot avoid it. We cannot escape it. And this attitude of like rewiring your brain to just be happy all of the time is like, first of all, unrealistic, but second of all, toxic as fuck. There is no reason that we should be trying to avoid feeling your feelings. Like they're just your feelings. Again, they don't have moral value. There's no good or logical reason to avoid them. And honestly, all of the research and evidence that we have suggests that the more comfortable you become processing those uncomfortable emotions, the more likely you are to move on from them in a timely manner. When we avoid our emotions, we prolong our suffering. And so this, again, steeped in pseudoscience, it's like intended to sound sciencey and fancy, but like this is not good advice. It's also not based in evidence-based practice in like an ethical way. Oh boy, this is another one that I don't super love. This says, be private and low-key. Don't tell people more than they need to know. They can't mess with what they don't know. I struggle with stuff like this because to an extent, I understand why someone would feel this way. Like I get where this is coming from. I think there's something to be said for practicing vulnerability in a safe way and only with people that we know are safe and validating. And like that disclosure is like very much a skill that we have to learn, like who and when and what the appropriate time is to share about our vulnerable things and, our like really like big nitty gritty emotional stuff. But I also struggle with this idea of not sharing because like someone's gonna mess it up or like whatever, because to me, it's just like a weird exclusivity thing and almost like you're not allowed to talk about positive things in your life in case someone messes it up. Brene Brown talks about this idea of dress rehearsing for disaster, and this sounds very much that way to me, that like I don't want to talk about the good things because if I talk about it, then something bad will happen and take it away from me. And like I don't like that. think that an important skill to learn how to live in that space of abundance and happiness and sort of lean into joy when it happens to, when it happens to you. And this idea of like holding all of your cards really close to your chest because you don't want anyone to ruin it and you don't want the universe to take it away from you, like that's not very healthy. And I, again, there's like kind of a middle ground there, but the reason graphics like this frustrate me is because it's being presented as if this is like the ultimate truth, when in reality there's like a whole gray area that exists here. There are extenuating circumstances that we can't account for in people's lives, and so when we offer advice like this, it's hard to say things like this and for it to be accurate because, like, again, there's lots of different life circumstances and things that we can't account for. And so I guess I just want to talk about this and caution you guys about taking these sort of like internet graphics as gospel, because sometimes they can be useful and applicable and sometimes they're not. And sometimes, especially if they're not from like a licensed mental health professional, they might just be talking out of their ass based on their own anecdotal experience. And while I can very much validate sharing your experience with mental illness, it's a little bit problematic for someone to perpetuate this as if that's like the truth for everyone always. So just like exercise caution, I guess. This last one that we're going to talk about is one that I really like. The Feel Good Dietitian, or Lauren Cadillac, I think on Instagram she's the Feel Good Dietitian, shared this earlier today. Actually, I really liked it. It says, if your doctor is hesitant to prescribe you antidepressants because of fear of weight gain, you need a new doctor like yesterday. We love this. We love well, she's a dietitian, but like professionals who are aware and validating of fat phobia. If you don't know anything about fat phobia, especially in the medical context, I would very much encourage you to look into that, because this is like a very real and present struggle for fat people and like, people of different body sizes generally, really. This idea that like, oh, like weight gain is the worst thing that could happen to a person. And like, fuck that. That's fucking toxic as fuck. But also, don't take no for an answer. If there's a doctor who is not providing you with the care that you deserve and is not allowing you to access the resources that you need to be okay and to feel healthy and be happy, fuck that professional. Look for a second opinion. Please don't be afraid to advocate for yourself in medical and like mental health settings, because just because a person has a degree and expertise doesn't mean that they can't be wrong. It does not mean that they are infallible. So if something doesn't sit right with you, if it doesn't feel okay, if it's not helpful or empowering or encouraging to you, there's nothing wrong with seeking a second opinion and telling that doctor to fucking pound sand, because they're not the end all be all. I tell this to my clients all the time, but like, you're the expert in your own life, and it's totally okay for you to demand care from a different provider or a different institution altogether if they're not giving you what you need and deserve. I think that's a good note to wrap up on. But if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, because we make content like this but other like fun educational style stuff, and I'd love to have you stick around and check it out. Leave me comments and let me know what your thoughts are. I'm always open to suggestions, and let me know if you guys have a different opinion about any of the graphics that I shared, because I love to chat with you guys. And then share the video to help the channel grow and to help each other grow. I will see you guys next Saturday, and that's it. Okay, bye.